Long before Orange County drum and percussion became a name known around the world, B.C. Vaught was part of the crew that saw it take shape. A drummer with deep roots in the local scene, he was there in the early days with Daniel Jensen. Playing in bands, hanging out, and watching the foundation of O.C.D.P's look and sound come to life. He had a front row seat to the garage days that started it all. This is the Fully Vented Podcast. Now here's your host, Jared Fallon.
Welcome to the Fully Vented Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Fallon, and today we are joined by a drummer whose career has spanned some of the most iconic names in rock and metal. He was the original drummer for Head PE, laying down the foundation for the band's first 3 albums, while later going on to tour with Breaking Benjamin during their We Are Not Alone cycle from 2004 to 2005. He currently keeps his creativity thriving as the drummer for Breaking in a Sequence and Solution, but beyond music, he's the president of Rotation Sports Management, where he builds careers across both sports and entertainment. Let's dive in. Please welcome to the show, B.C. Vaught.
Hey.
Yeah, round of applause. What's up, man? Thank you for joining us, dude. I'm so happy you said yes to this.
How could I not? This is cool.
Sweet. So I'm gonna hit you with some questions, man. If you can, describe O.C.D.P in a few sentences.
Unique, fun, incredible sound, innovative, the best.
I like it. Short and sweet. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Can you describe a vented snare? And is there any song that you recorded that you think captured that sound the best?
That's funny. A little ironic that it's called vented because the only vented snare that I used. See, I was always a nice, thick, solid snare. For some reason, I just didn't get into the vented snares because I heard the bottom snares a lot more, and I was more of like a bottom end frequency sound with a clear emperor head that was tightened like you wouldn't believe. I can't believe these lugs would hold how much I would crank them. So the only vented snare I ever used was this beauty.
Ooh, yes. We will definitely have to. Oh hell yeah, we're gonna definitely, for our viewers out there, in the collector world, everybody will be drooling over that. We're definitely gonna dive into some details about that. But yeah, even though you didn't, use a vented snare, we are venting. We are talking. You know what I mean? We're telling the story, man. So yeah. Did you ever actually visit the shop? And if you did, can you describe it?
Okay, so it was about 1995, 96 when we were blowing up, and we played Club 369 in Fullerton, and Damian Young came in. I was using a Pearl 12x7 snare that I bought at Guitar Center, and Damian comes up after the show and he's like, "Bro, like, I got to hook you up with this company, man. They'll make a snare that'll kick that snare's ass." And he goes, you gotta come down and meet Daniel. And so this was when Daniel was working out of his garage in it was like Mission Viejo area. So it was before O.C.D.P had a shop. He was just building everything right in his garage, and I went in there and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'll make you a badass snare. How many plies you want?" I'm like, "Oh, I can choose my plies? Yeah, you can go as thick as you want." And the first snare he made me was a 10-10. So it was, 20 ply on both edges and then 10 plies all the way down. And that's what I recorded the first Head PE album with. And
wow.
The snare sounds I got on that album are still to this day some of my favorite snare sounds.
Oh yeah. So, hell yeah.
Yeah. But it was soon thereafter when they moved to Santa Ana location. Yeah, I was at the shop all the time, begging for free shit.
What would you describe it as? Like kind of like the local watering hole, or just like kind of a hangout?
Nah, I mean, I'm kind of kidding. I didn't go down there and bug the guys all the time, but if Jeremy was building me a kit or something, I go down there and check it out.
Gotcha.
And, just kind of wanted to see how they did it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
They put all stuff together and all the cool designs they came up with. It was like just a playground for all those guys in there because they were just doing different stuff with drums that everybody else was doing.
Yeah, I mean, just the literally, I mean, they stood true to that statement. The only limitation is your imagination. And
Yeah,
definitely sparked everybody's creativity, even if you didn't like a finish, you know what I mean, or a particular color or something like that. You couldn't deny, like, oh, but what if I swapped that, or what if I tried, I don't like that size, but really
yeah,
did, make your brain kind of, tinker a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
no doubt.
so who was your favorite drummer that played Orange County?
Well, obviously, Chad Sexton. I always, he was an inspiration to me. Obviously, I stole a lot of little, uh, little double stroke stuff from him. I got to see Chad play in small clubs like Club 5902 in Huntington Beach. And I could stand right by him and watch what he was doing, and I learned a lot from watching him play. Um, but Adrian, uh, I even got Joey Jordison on OCDPs for a little bit.
Oh,
You know,
you were the guy behind that? No way.
yeah,
You know what's crazy to me, and I think almost any band that was associated with Orange County or any drummer, it's the album that really stuck out. It's one of those, you ever listen to Slipknot, everyone always mentions Iowa. Like, oh man,
hmm
I really love the sounds of Iowa, or I wish, like, oh, they're writing a new record. Hopefully it's going to sound like Iowa. People forget, like, the drums behind that were, Orange County. Like, that sound and that
hmm
snare, that was Orange County. So how did
yeah.
you get Joey on board?
Well, because first of all, those guys, we played at a place called the Toad Holler, I think, in Des Moines on our first tours around 1997, and all the Slipknot guys came down, and that's when we first met them. And Joey was telling me like how much he loved my snare sound and everything, and we became friends instantly. And then Ozfest '99 we did together, and then Paul Gray and I, we drink a lot of Jack and Coke together. And one night we were pretty hammered, and I remember asking him like, "What are you? Are you Hispanic or what?" And he goes, "No, I'm American Indian." I said, "Well, so am I. What tribe?" And he said, "Choctaw." And I go, "Dude,
No
I'm
way.
Choctaw." So right then we became the Choctaw Brothers. He takes me on the Slipknot bus and he goes, "From now on, BC's full family here." And we just became really good friends. And Joey and I were always going back and forth the banter. I mean, obviously, I had huge respect for his drumming because I couldn't come close to playing that style of drumming. And then he would sit down on my drums and try to play some of my beats, and I would make fun of him, like, "Oh, dude, you sound way too stiff," And so there was lots of banter with Joey and I, and we were great friends. I was blessed to be able to tour with Slipknot so much, and so yeah, I mean, Joey was one of my favorites. He didn't play OCDPs all that long for whatever reason. I don't know the background on why he left or whatever, but you know, so that's that. Chad Sexton for sure was my number one, and that's the reason I didn't innovate anything in head PE. That's pretty much the reason I picked up a 12x7 in the first place.
Right on.
And I love that sound, and it worked for head PE. And so yeah. Sorry, Chad, I ripped you off.
Yeah, the Joey thing, I heard, I don't know how true it is, but like the story that I was told was that, obviously Slipknot was gaining popularity, and for people out there listening that don't know, Slipknot has percussionists as well. It's not just a drummer. You know what I mean? There's lots of other
Yeah,
things going on, and that Pearl could have offered, you know what I mean, the full circle deal. You know what I mean? Where like, hey, we've
sure.
got marching drums, we've got these, where maybe I think Orange County at that time maybe couldn't facilitate that. But again, I don't know how true that is.
I mean, Orange County was a small shop. I mean, they were selling a decent amount of drums, but it was still a pretty small, obscure company. So I could see that. I could see them, not having the marketing dollars to be giving Joey two or three sets plus
Hmm.
Clown and Chris and you know, maybe that was the deal. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I was bummed to see him. I was bummed to see him go, but I just didn't ask too many questions.
Yeah, same. As a fan, everybody, we kind of just I think Joey sounded his best behind those drums, in my personal opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it had the personality that matched the mask in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
So you said Damien approached you about, hey, we'll make you a snare. But prior to that, how did you hear about Orange County? Did you know about them, or was that the first introduction for you?
That was kind of I. Well, no, I think I knew about Orange County through probably Chad Sexton, but I didn't know anybody from there. I didn't know who to approach, or I didn't even know where Daniel lived. I didn't even know who Daniel was. So when Damien came up, because he was in a cool band that would play with us too. Um, he so we kind of had a little bit of a rapport, and he said, "No, I got to hook you up with this company." I was like, "Oh, okay, let's do it." And took me to meet Daniel, and Daniel and I became instant buddies. We're still buddies to this day. We don't hang out
Hmm.
often at all, but lots of Instagram banter back and forth, and I have so much respect for him because at the time I went from being an ambulance driver that was going to be a cop or a fireman to being in this band that got a record deal pretty quick. And so for me to get an endorsement from Orange County Drums, I was very thankful for it. And I always told Daniel when he gave me the drums, I go, just so you know, I will never ever sell any of the stuff that you give me. I appreciate it so much, and after Head PE and Breaking Benjamin, I took a lot of time off. I just said I'm done playing drums, and
Hmm.
I put drums in the storage. These things, when I pulled them out of storage, were full of cobwebs. It was insane because I didn't have them in cases. um, and I pulled them out, and there they are. To this day, it's nice to be able to tell Daniel, check these out. I still got them.
Right on. For our
Yeah.
listeners out there, if you haven't already, stick around, join our Patreon, and stick around with BC and I, because we're going to dive into the kits that he's mentioning that he still has. But as regards to like your first order, did it just start out as a snare, or did you actually went all in and get a kit, or how did that go? What was the order
Not,
like?
I like I said, I met Daniel. Like we hadn't come out with the first album yet, so he was willing to hook me up a snare, and so he said, you like that Pearl 12x7? Yeah, I'm going to make you something a little more stout, and you can get a little more tone out of. And he made me that 1010, and that's what I recorded the first Head PE album. And I'll never forget coming back down to Mission Viejo and went to Daniel's house. I come out in the car, put that album on, and he was super stoked on the sound.
Oh, totally. And it's also really cool that so we've from interviewing other artists and builders, it's like Daniel really took and John Machado, they took a chance on a lot of these guys like that were up and coming, and it just it's funny to look at, like you said, you were driving an ambulance and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, listen to my CD." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um so I kind of want to like dive into so you guys it was around 94 when everything started to take off for you guys. Like what was the scene like in around those times,
We formed in New Year's Eve going into 1994, and we said we're going to practice and write 3-4 days a week for a year straight, and that's what we did. We had a studio up in Vernon, which is almost to LA, by all the slaughterhouses. It stunk.
Oh,
Coal chamber was across the hall from us. It was an old like storage facility. It was a horrible place to rehearse, but we got a lot of work done there, and we pretty much a year just wrote a ton of songs. And meanwhile, Wes, I wasn't so much the club guy, but Wes, Chad, and Jared, they were in the clubs every night and promoting Head and putting Head PE stickers on every stop sign around Orange County. So our first show we played was, now it's a club now called the Wayfarer in Costa Mesa, but it was called Club Mesa.
mhm.
There was a line down the street. It was packed. It was just packed, and I'm like, oh, geez, I guess we got something here, And we just started. you know, picking and choosing what shows we wanted to play, and I booked all the shows, so I was getting our money up, and I was seeing like, geez, we're making $5,000 as a local band to play Club 369 in Fullerton, which was a capacity of 369 people.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I think we're going to do something with this band. And Ray Anderson was our manager at the time. Ended up finding Jive Records. There's a couple labels, but the guys wanted to be on Jive because it was predominantly a hip hop label. And we went with Jive, and I think some guys didn't think Jive did a great job. I thought Jive did a great job. I just don't think we had songs that were great for radio. I think we were a cool band, but I just don't think we had songs that were gonna blow up on K Rock. Bartender was on there, and it didn't turn into success for the band. Which in the end, success for the band, it would have imploded anyways. So it really doesn't matter. It was kind of a blessing in disguise that it didn't happen early on.
Yeah. I mean, it's also just, insane that you guys were getting paid to do those gigs. Like, and also if anybody, like nowadays, if I was to mention a band, I could just send you on Spotify or, check out on Apple Music or send a YouTube
Mm-hmm.
link. In order for you to hear, new music, you had to actually go to the show. I don't think, the generation now understands that.
Yeah, no, it's way different than it was before. Before it was, you had to put a lot more street work in, and get out there and work the clubs and meet people. Now, everything's about followers and social media.
Yeah, I feel like
It's
your record advanced
boring
is
now.
how many followers do you have on Instagram will dictate what your your advance is to make your record, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, like what was so when you guys signed your deal, did you were you able to actually, get an Orange County kit, or was the still using the one that Daniel had gifted you?
No, we had signed our deal, but Daniel didn't know a whole lot about Head. I mean, he had heard about us, and I got him to come out to shows and stuff like that. So, that's why he made me the snare. But it wasn't until we started touring on that album, I was playing on an old Premier projector kit that I bought at Guitar Center. In fact, the toms on the first Head PE album is a Premier kit.
That's
The only
fun.
thing on the first Head PE album is the O.C.D.P. snare.
Gotcha.
And after that, that's when Daniel, like pretty much right around the time I got him in my truck to listen to the first album, he's out. He's like, "All right, what do you want?" And they gave me that.
Interesting. So when you recorded the next two albums, did you use that kit on that?
Yeah, yeah. The Broke album was recorded with that kit, and then Blackout was recorded with that kit, and then that's what I toured with Breaking Benjamin also.
Nice. I love it. So I was actually about to ask you about that. How did you transition from Head PE to, landing the gig with Breaking Benjamin?
Because Breaking Benjamin used to open up for us a lot, and and we were all buddies. I was real super tight with Mark and Aaron and even Ben. But and Mark is more of a funk style player, and Mark really liked my drumming in Head PE. Um, and Mark, you know, I guess they weren't getting along with Jeremy Hummel, who to me is the perfect drummer for Breaking Benjamin and is a great drummer. Um, but they had a falling out and they let him go. And Mark called and said, "Hey, we want you to come play for us." And I was like, "All right, I'll go for it." But, knowing that Breaking Benjamin's style of music was really not, I'm more kind of behind the beat, like funk style, where Breaking Benjamin is on the beat
Hmm.
and very, precise double kick, slow beats. And, so I got in the studio and did a lot of work on it. But when I went and joined them, we only had a couple rehearsals for me to get comfortable, and I wasn't quite comfortable when we started playing shows. And um, I got there. I remember the Papa Roach guys all watching me play with them at a festival in Texas, and they're like, "Dude, doing a great job," But it took a little while to get there, and I just think, and I don't know, I didn't really get along with Ben that well. I guess once, he was my buddy when they were opening up for us in Head PE, but once I became his drummer, like the dynamic changed, and I wasn't enjoying that. I don't think Mark and Aaron were at the time either.
Interesting.
Um, so pretty much I did the We Are Not Alone tour, and it was like, yeah, I think I'm good on that. And I was really bummed out because that was a great opportunity for me to continue in the music industry, and I was watching that go bye bye, and then I didn't know what I was going to do, So that's when I got into, my buddy Wes Miller, who owned a company that made action sports films based on quad riders and these quad racers and quad freestyle. He goes, "Come work for me. I don't really know what you'll do here, but you'll figure it out." And he gave me a salary and said, "Go to town." And that's how rotation sports management started. I just started working with these athletes and seeing how we can get them to the next level in a safe manner, or as safe as possible for freestyle motocross.
Wow.
And we had a lot of success, and a lot of bad things happened too, where,
Oh, I'm
a
sure.
couple athletes, one that was like my own kid, he passed away at X Games. And, but that's basically how, I got into what I do now, just through leaving the music business, which happens to a lot of people. Now I'm
Hmm.
doing it as a hobby. I'm playing with Breaking in a Sequence are all great dudes. There are no egos. The singer actually does things for the band other than show up and sing. Um,
Yeah, we'll definitely, I want to dive more into the motocross stuff and things like that, but just want to back it up a little bit. So in with Breaking Benjamin, what's kind of funny is that one, I saw I saw you play live, right?
mhm,
So, again, internet is still, a relatively new thing, you know what I mean? So,
mhm,
unless you saw it in person, like you kind of foolishly like assume things. So for me, like listening, I assumed that the Orange County drums that I saw on stage was what I was hearing on the record. And it was like, oh man, if I didn't already love these drums already, you know what I mean? Here's another excuse, be like, oh, look, I saw them live. They sounded so good.
mhm.
I really want to get a kit now. But of course,
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Um,
They weren't cheap if you had to buy them.
oh no, no, they would have like the website, you'd go on there and it would have the price list and you're just like, okay, so I might be able to afford an 8-inch tom, maybe. Maybe.
Yeah, I know it.
Y-
I used to look and see how much they were worth too. I'm like, geez Louise, yeah.
Oh, it's crazy what it's become now. It's one of those things. They've aged like a fine wine where some of the drums that are available today out there in the used market,
Hmm.
obviously you can't get a new one made, but the used stuff are selling for the same price, if not more than what it cost to, back in the day, which is just,
I've been wondering about that because I see a lot of OCDPs online for sale, but they don't have the same. What do they call these lugs? Baltimore lugs.
Yeah, so those were the sunlight lugs. Somewhere down the line somebody called them Baltimore, but
Yeah,
the thing about those lugs are they are great on kits, but for snares, like it's not even a question of if, it's a matter of when. They're probably
when
gonna snap, you know what I mean?
my drum tech Germs, he would fill the lugs on my snare with JB Weld.
Oh, wow. It's like
Yeah,
I don't know if you know anything about vintage drums, but like Rogers, Cadillac of drums, kind of similar
yeah,
story. They had
yeah,
these B&B bread and butter lugs and same thing. All of them, they would just snap at some point.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, the don't remember the exact date. It's always kind of like a question that everybody has, but they transitioned to the shark teeth lugs that have the point to it.
Yeah.
So a little bit more
I wondered
sturdy.
about that. Was that after they sold the company to Guitar
No,
Center?
this probably would have
No. Okay.
been. Evan might be able to like help me out on this one. It's always like because you'll see pictures, and the other thing too is they offered them because the hole spacing was the same as the Baltimore lugs. So some people would buy replacements. So you can see a snare and you'd be like, oh, that looks like it's, it has this throw off on it, the nickel work. So it's got to be 2001. But then you'll see the shark tooth and you go, oh, wait, they came out in like 2002, 2003. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's hard to date some of these too because they're not serialized. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, they came out with the shark tooth. But the other thing is that with the Guitar Center stuff, they have the triangle badge and these like um, a cheaper version of the shark teeth. So if you're in the used market, it's kind of hard to distinguish unless you've, either held these or seen enough of them. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I always wondered about that. That's cool you clarified that because I kind of just assumed the shark teeth one were after they sold the Guitar Center.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Because it's one of those like I said, the GC version is the cheap generic version. So some people might see a USA custom and pass on it because they're like, oh, it's got those, cheap lugs on it. It's like, oh no, there's slight variations.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing I wanted to ask you too, with Breaking Benjamin, did you use the same? Obviously, use the kit, but for the snare, did you use the same snare that you used on the Head PE stuff?
No, well, yeah, it was this one. It was a
Oh wow.
12 by 6, 12 by, yes, 12 by 6. So Jeremy, they made me a full kit this color, but when I got the full kit, I didn't like the color.
Huh.
I didn't know how to tell Daniel. I'm like, dude, I think I screwed up. And he goes, hey, bring it back. I'll make you another one, another kit. And that's when they made that one for me right there. But I
Interesting.
kept the snare because I love the sound, and now I use it in both breaking in a sequence and solution. But it's that's old school right there.
Yeah. I'm almost wondering if they you know what I mean, granted, with doing custom drums it's kind of hard to, especially when it comes to staining or anything. It's one of those you have an idea what it's going to look like, or this wasn't the days of a
Yeah,
mock up, so I can imagine getting it and you're like, oh, I wish it was a tad darker. you
yeah.
know. Or
Daniel made it so cool though. He's like, hey, bro, if you don't like that color, just give it back to us. I'll sell it to somebody.
oh, that's so rad.
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
Did like if you were on the road or anything or playing shows and something were to go wrong, could you just call those guys up and say, "Hey, this like, wing nut or lug broke. Can you send me something?" Would they?
Yeah, I mean, before tour, they would load me up with some lugs and whatever I needed. I never had any problems with my drums. I mean, these things went around the world numerous times, and the only thing that would happen is sometimes a snare lug would snap, but Germ started filling them with JB Weld, like I said, and that made the difference. But what that did do also is it started causing the holes to oblong.
So for people listening out there, it's almost like I call it like slightly egged, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you know what I mean? When you start torquing it, and if the lug is starting to give, the idea is like, oh, screws loose, let's tighten it, right? Almost like a wench in a
yeah,
way. And then before you realize it, I see it countless
yeah,
times.
yeah.
Or the other thing too is like throughout the years, I've done a lot of like restoring of these drums. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the pictures like floating around, but you'll always see, especially on the wrap or even like a stain, the lug will slowly dig into the finish. So you'll see
Mhm. Yeah.
you'll see the outline. You're like, oh, at what point did you stop cranking?
Yeah, no, that's happened to my original snares. I sent when I came out of retirement or whatever you call it, I pulled these snares out and they all had issues. And I got a hold of Mike Kelly was not interested. He was like, "Nah, I don't repair drums."
Hmm.
But Jesse Ockvist
Oquist, yeah,
said,
we
"Send
actually
it."
had Jesse on.
Ockvist, yeah,
Yeah, Jesse's cool. We
yeah,
had him
yeah.
on.
Oh, awesome dude, yeah. And at some point, I want to get one of his kits. You know what I mean? I just haven't gotten around to buying another kit yet because I keep playing these.
Hmm.
I love these, So, but Jesse, I sent him all my snares, and he hooked me up big time. Didn't charge me a ton of money to get them going again, and so now I do jam the 12 by sevens, but getting older, playing a 12 by 7 with a tight head is a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
compared to playing a bigger note on a 14-inch snare. So I guess I got lazy a little bit because I play the 14 all the time now.
Yeah. Um, one of those things. I had this book. It was about John Bonham, where it gave a lowdown of like all the gear that he played throughout the years. And as he got
Mhm.
older, I was like, oh, the reason he started playing the acrylics or the Vistalites and then went to the stainless steel was that his health was failing, but he was also getting older, and it was just easier to make more sound with less effort.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
That's what Machine taught me that on the Broke album. He
Oh
goes,
yeah,
bro, that 12-inch snare is such a small note. I need a bigger note, you know?
I see.
And so that's when Machine got me to do some stuff on a 14 on the Broke album, which I wasn't into it at the time. You know, I love that 12 by 7
Hmm.
snare, but you know, Machine is a producer, and I knew I needed to listen to the producer so he could do his thing. You know.
Yeah. It's one of
Yeah.
those sometimes hard to take, constructive criticism.
It is, but you know, you got to remind yourself. You know, it's about the song, and Machine did a hell of a job producing that Broke album. So I was all ears.
So, like, as far as like sizes go, I know we're gonna, well, on our Patreon, we're gonna dive into, the kits that you have, but for your sizes and stuff, like, what drew you to play that, or was that kind of like a Daniel, or was just that's kind of where the music led you?
I was always into an 8, 10, and 12 rack tom setup, and then a 16 floor tom. I always only used one floor tom. And then the kick, yeah, it was either Daniel or Jeremy's idea at the time to go with a 20 by 20. They said it's a little cannon, you know, and really I like the idea of using the 20 because I wanted to get my rack toms lower. I've never liked rack toms that are like way up in front of you. I just don't like that feel. I like them a little lower.
Well, we
So
also
I
we
went
also
with a
get to see
smaller
you.
kick.
You know what I mean? Isn't that the
Yeah,
worst? You're looking in the
that's
crowd and you're
cool.
like, you can't see, you just see Toms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that is kind of a bummer. Yeah, but yeah, no. So I got that 20 by 20, and that kick to this day just is a little rocket. I love it.
So, did Jeremy build a lot of your stuff?
Yeah, like I never, like Mike Kelly was always around. I don't remember conversing with Jesse ever at Orange County.
Well, so
I was trying
Jesse
to.
was sorry to interrupt you, but like Jesse, he was in the early days, probably like the Lake Forest working in the garage. Like when we had him on, we were talking about that. So he might have, I know he left, came back briefly, and then like he kind of was in and out. So maybe
Okay,
maybe your paths didn't really necessarily cross all that much, you know.
yeah. Mainly, I felt like Jeremy built these drums. I think Mike Kelly was in on it too. But really, when I would talk to somebody at OCDP, if it wasn't Daniel, it would be Jeremy, and on occasion Mike.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think I know that kit was built by Jeremy,
gotcha.
and I think that was built by Jeremy. But Mike can probably correct me. I'm sorry, Mike, if you did. I love you.
I was
I
gonna
love you,
say.
Mike. You know, so yeah, I got me one of these.
Oh, right on. It was funny. I was actually
Yeah.
talking to him yesterday. I'm like, "Hey, I got BC Vaught coming on." He's like, "Dude, nicest human being." He's like, "Tell him
Oh
I say
yeah.
what's up." So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Awesome. Great guy.
yeah, it's so sad, about Jeremy, obviously, rest in peace. But did you check out any of his Q stuff by any chance?
I did, but at the time he was blowing up with Q, like I wasn't. I was not in the scene. I got into getting a Roland kit, a new Roland TD20 at the time, and I was just playing drums for fun at home. Didn't want to play in a band or anything, and I saw him post, and I went down to his place in San Pedro and
Hmm.
checked out his process, and I was like, at some point I'm going to buy one of these snares just because I want one of these snares. I wish I had pulled the trigger at the time. It's a shame that company wasn't able to continue on after he passed away. But
Yeah.
anybody who has a Q drum set out there, never get rid of it.
If you thought the used market was either competitive or pricey for Orange County, Q is even more, if you think of the number of drums that Jeremy was able to produce in such a short time, they go for top dollar and they sell quickly. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely
I
something
wish I
special.
wish I'd bought one of those snares. Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of those
but he
like
got one that wants to make me a deal out there. Hit me up.
if we get hit up, be like I'll be the middleman.
All right,
I'll
sounds
take my
good.
cut. Yeah. Um, but so you said you weren't doing music like after Breaking Benjamin, you kind of took a step back, and what led you to go in the direction of the moto sports, that kind of thing?
Like I said, I started working for Wes Miller at H Bomb Films. I had always been into racing and stuff growing up, and I used to or actually, when I was in Head PE, I was teaching at a racing school in Las Vegas called the Derek Daly Academy.
Oh,
So it was the coolest thing to be on a plane, and you're talking to somebody, and they're like, "What do you do for a living?" I go, "Well, I play in a rock band and I teach race car driving." That was pretty cool, and it was a lot of fun to be able to do that. But then after Breaking Benjamin was over, I needed a job. I didn't know what I was going to do to make money, and thankfully Wes Miller picked me up, and through time kind of forged my way. At first I focused on merchandise, and we got all these designs. It's a small world. The guy that I worked with to do all the designs is now the owner of Violent Gentleman clothing, which, if you're a hockey fan, you know that brand. It's a huge brand in the hockey world. But so Brian did all these great designs, and I inked a deal with a distributor called Tucker Rocky. And hey, I was off. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm gonna have some success with this. It was a big deal, and then they placed the merchandise throughout the country in motorcycle shops. And unfortunately, in the dirt bike world, a lot of people just don't think quads are that cool.
hmm
You know, when in the freestyle world, which is what we did, they're the hardest thing to freestyle. Over a dirt bike, a snowmobile, and a quad. The quad is the hardest thing to flip, for sure. And so I had this team of guys that we travel the world doing quad freestyle shows. We got to go everywhere. It was neat. Toured the world in a rock band, then I got to go manage these freestyle riders around the world doing quad freestyle shows, and it was a lot of fun. It was scary because guys would get hurt, and and we, me and the Moore brothers would work together to make it as safe as possible.
hmm
Um, as funny as that sounds with freestyle at the time, now everybody lands to airbags,
Oh,
but
but
when
not back then.
my guys were doing it, these are the true innovators like Pastrana. He's
Yeah.
is a huge innovator, and he did all the big tricks to dirt. Now they're doing them to airbags, and I'm not taking anything away from that because that's still sketch. If you land
Oh,
upside
yeah.
down on an airbag, you're gonna get hurt. So it's super sketch. But to shorten it up, yeah, we traveled the world doing all these shows, and then the boys wanted to, they wanted to get bigger with. They wanted to be more known and have more opportunities to make money, and it's what you do, And so Caleb and Colton wanted to ride snowmobiles at Winter X Games, and we had a partnership with Polaris, so we got them on snowmobiles, and they had some great success at X Games. And then 2013, Caleb was on a gold medal run, and he was on his very last jump in that run, and I don't know what went through his mind or what happened, but he under rotated. Snowmobile piled him, contused his heart. Uh, Piece of shit thoracic surgeon at the Aspen Hospital. All he had to do was take Caleb into a surgery, which would be a 20, 30-minute surgery, and cut the sac at the bottom of the heart in a couple places, and it would have relieved the heart. But
Wow.
instead, he didn't want to do it. He wanted to send Caleb to Grand Junction, but it was snowing out, so they couldn't get a helicopter to come in. We had to wait for an ambulance to get him to a town called Rifle to put him in a fixed wing to fly him to Grand Junction. by that time, Caleb coded out in the plane from Rifle to Grand Junction,
Wow.
and nobody knew it, but he was brain dead at that point. But 2 days later, when they tried to bring him out of the coma, he never came out of the coma, and they had to make the choice to pull the plug. It was absolutely horrible because you know
Shit.
they were like my own kids.
Yeah.
Like a ton of respect for their parents for giving them the resources to do what they wanted to do. But unfortunately, Caleb passed away, and Colton. I wanted to leave the business at the time. I also had a bar restaurant in Fallbrook, California, with a buddy of mine, Waldo, and I took a month off after that happened. I told Colton I'm not doing this anymore, and Colton said, "No, you have to stay because I'm going back to Winter X Games next year, and I'm going to win the gold for my brother." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to support you there, but we want to do things very calculated, make sure that this doesn't happen again." And Colton went back the next year and got the gold for his brother, which was super super cool for him and the Moore family. And then Colton wanted to do the double backflip the next year, or a couple of years later. The balls that these kids had,
Yeah.
I used to tell Caleb and Colton and all my guys, I go, if you guys want to be famous, you should have picked up a guitar or some drumsticks and gone that route. It's much safer,
Yeah.
but that was their form. I saw it in them. Their passion for freestyle and racing was like my passion for drumming when I was growing up, so you couldn't talk them out of it. You had to support it and help them be as safe as possible and get them taken care of at events. I mean, we were in the early days of freestyle too. So when you travel to other countries, you get there and their freestyle ramp, you look at it and you're like, dude, we can't jump this ramp. And the promoter would be just like, my friend, just try, please, just try. And I'm like, no, we're not going to just try. Like, I sent you a template. The template does not match. We're not going to ride, you know? And that's what we started doing. We started sending a physical template of a ramp if they had to build one to them, along with specs for a landing ramp, and then the quads. Since we had to deal with Polaris, we would basically get the same quad everywhere and put our parts on it. So the quad was the same everywhere they went, but the ramp had to be built as per our spec, and they'd have to pay 50% up front. And if we got to another country and the ramp wasn't to spec, they'd have to refund, or they wouldn't. I'm sorry, we would leave and keep 50% of the money, and that was it. So promoters started making sure ramps were built perfectly, and then the ramps were standardized through the industry, so everybody kind of was riding one of two or three style ramps.
Yeah, I mean, at that point too, there's absolutely no margin for error. If something doesn't look or feel right, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Also, it drastically different than hey, we're about to go play a show for 10,000 people versus like hey, about to do a double backflip. Watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh
The
man.
stress was high. They would make fun of me because I would be on the sideline screaming. Like, if they're doing a flip trick and it didn't look like he was going to finish the rotation, I'd be freaking out, and they would laugh at me and say, "Oh, old man, go over in the corner and let us do our thing." And I'm just like, Jesus,
Yeah.
I just
No.
don't want to see these guys crash. We've seen enough of it.
Yeah. Um. So obviously left music, ventured down that road, and then what led you coming back to music?
What led me coming back to music is a gentleman sitting just on the other side of my computer, Joe Tabak. They had this band with David Severa from Korn called Core 10, and they didn't get, no offense, Joe, but they didn't get the greatest reviews on that band, and they ended up parting ways with some of the members, and then they started another band called Breaking in a Sequence with Rich Nguyen, the singer. And then I started listening to those cuts, and I'm like, shit's really good. I like these songs. So Joe and I would talk once in a while, but then I guess David started hinting that he was going to move to Florida. So Joe was always hitting me up, hey man, what do you think about coming to play for us? And I was like, nah, I'm not interested. I just don't. For one, I don't want to deal with singers ever again. And I'm not that excited about playing in a band again, and I don't really have the time. And as time went on, it took a year or so, Joe. He was pretty persistent, and finally he said, "Dude, you got to talk to Rich. Get on the phone with Rich and talk to him." And so I talked to Rich, and I said, if I come play in this band, I'm not trying to get a record deal. I'm not trying to whatever a record deal is these days. I don't
Yeah,
know. I said I
there's
just
that
want to
too.
play. I just want to have fun. If we can do that, then I'll come down and let's try it out. And came down to the studio, jammed with them, and all the dudes were super cool. I had fun. We played our first show, and then we started playing other shows. And I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. And it's been fun. And then one day, my bass player asked me if I want to jam a show with his reggae rock band Solution, and I said, "Yeah, that's really all I listen to these days is like Stick Figure and
Oh, cool.
Dirty Heads, and Slightly Stupid, and
Pepper.
now I'm and Pepper, and yeah, now I'm into like this. I'm really into this young local band here called Nice and Swell. Like I want to work with them and help them with their career. Um, so I'm just really deep in kind of the music scene again all of a sudden, and I'm having a great time. Breaking in a sequence is more of a production for us to play shows. We have to, there's a lot of equipment to take. We load a trailer. We got the in-ear system and everything. Solutions a lot easier. I throw drums in the back seat of my truck, old school, and you go set up in 2 minutes, play the show, bring the stuff back to the studio. It's easier to do a show with Solution, but I enjoy playing with both bands. Solutions reggae, it's a different style for me. I didn't play that style before, where breaking in a sequence is more my flavor and equally enjoyable. So I got the best of both worlds right now.
Oh, right on.
Some of the guys in breaking in the sequence would prefer that I focus more on breaking in a sequence, but I said I want to come have fun, and we're having fun. I think we're gonna focus on a certain amount of shows for breaking in a sequence next year that can be great shows, and then do a lot of small local shows with Solution. Like I play on the beach by my house. It's bitching.
Oh, that's
Sea legs by the beach. It's the
yeah,
best.
I was gonna say, like, how can you not
Mhm.
enjoy that? I mean,
Yeah.
were you excited that you started playing again to pull those drums out of storage and, kind of go, oh wow, there's something special with these drums.
Yeah, I always knew it. I always, look at them and reminisce the times I had with these drums and pulling them out and getting a literal blower to blow the cobwebs off them. And then the first time I set them up here to play with the guys, it's fun. It took me a while to get back in the saddle with my drumming. For one, there's you could search breaking in a sequence don't run live at the Whiskey, and there's a point where you see my face and I'm struggling to breathe. And just before that, we had played the Mint 400 in Las Vegas, and I had to stop playing when we were sound checking because I couldn't breathe. And my tech's like, "Dude, your face has all these red spots all over it." I'm like, I'm fat and out of shape, Like about 215 now, but I got up to 240, man. I was eating pizza, drinking cocktails all the time, and my son's calling me a fat ass every day. I finally decided I got to do something to lose some weight, and but it was if you watch that video, don't run live at the Whiskey, you'll see me breathing super hard, and it was just a few days later when I got this pressure in my neck real bad. And instead of going to the ER then, I said, I'm going to have a glass of wine and relax. And I did, and I went to bed. Thankfully, woke up. The next morning, I went to the ER, and I said, I think I'm having a respiratory issue. And they took some blood, and 10 minutes later, they were out there with a gurney saying, you're going to the cath lab right now.
Oh
You're having a
wow.
heart issue. And turns out my Widowmaker, which is the part of your heart that supplies over 50% of the blood to your heart, was 99% blocked. And the doctor came in after he stented it and said, "How long have you had the sensation, like I had this icy hot feel in my chest? How long have you had that sensation?" I said, "It's been going on a couple months." And he's like, "Dude, I can't even believe you're alive."
Holy
So
shit.
I'm surprised I didn't die on stage at the whiskey or at the Mint 400, but I'm super thankful that I ended up going to the ER and getting that rectified, because it was going to be bad.
Yeah, kids, if you're listening, if you see something, go to a doctor. I think
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm one of those notoriously do the check engine light comes on. You're like, ride it until it doesn't start anymore. You
yeah,
know what I mean? You're like, well, this doesn't work anymore. Maybe it's time to finally go. But
yeah.
yeah, man,
I mean,
glad you're still
my
here.
dad started having heart problems at my age, so I shouldn't have delayed by any means. I should have gone in at the first symptom, but you always want to think it's going to subside and go away.
Yeah, wow, just again, crazy stories of, teetering on that edge, man. I'm glad you're still here. That's just
Yeah,
wild.
thanks, me too.
So besides almost near death, and dying behind the kit, what other memorable stories do you actually have from whether it be Orange County days, Breaking Benjamin, Head PE? What other memorable stories do you have
I mean, we can go
for days?
uh, for days. I mean, the amount of stories that came about through playing in this band. One story that came up recently that I really like to tell, um, through music. It doesn't have anything to do with OCDP, but it was like I said, it was a pretty quick turnaround from being an ambulance guy to being in a rock band that was known worldwide. And Jack Osborne was really into Head PE. He loved our band. He loved coming up on our bus on Ozfest, playing Madden with Chad and Wes. And um, I was starting to manage a band called 20 Dead Flower Children. And I got them on this TV show called The Farm Club. Remember that show years ago?
Vaguely. I feel like it popped up on shows you forgot about. I think I saw a clip on it.
Yeah, it's really cool. They bring young up and coming bands on there and, you know, get them seen by millions of people. So I got them on the show, and Jack says, "Hey, pick me up at my house." And so I went to pick him up and got to the house, knocked on the door, and I was like, "Please don't let Ozzy answer the door. Hopefully Jack just answers and we go." Because on Ozfest '99, I never met Ozzy.
Oh,
I
okay.
was always afraid of Sharon and Ozzy, because we partied pretty good on Ozfest. We stole her golf cart once, and I'll tell you that story another time. And we got in some trouble, but I was just praying that Ozzy didn't answer the door, and sure enough, that door swings open and it's Ozzy. And he goes, "Who are you?" And I hear Jack go, "Dad, you know who that is? He plays drums in Head PE." And Ozzy said, "Head PE? You guys just did a remake of Sabra Cadabra." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "It was fucking brilliant."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Well, thank you, Mr. Osborne. I appreciate that." And he says, "Where's your tattoos?" And I said, "Oh, I don't have any tattoos." And he goes, "Not one?" I go, "No." And he goes, "Jack, this guy's fucking cool."
Who would have
And
thought?
that's one of the neatest stories that ever came out of playing playing music. Getting to meet the man himself, and it's cool, all the love he received. At his final concert, and then when he passed away, how many people showed their love for him, except for Roger Waters,
Oh, don't
that cunt.
don't don't get me started on this one. Our editor over here would be like, it's just gonna be a bleep section. Yeah.
Yeah, but I got stories for days. I mean, for me to, it was neat back in the day. I'd have some pretty big parties at my house. A lot of people, if they knew Head PE in the old days, I had a killer house to have killer parties, and we would have these parties. And it was always an honor. And for me, I was always so stoked when Daniel would show up.
Oh, right
You
on.
know,
He made the
Daniel's
call.
just like me, man. We like to have fun, and we had fun.
That's
So
awesome.
that's probably why we don't hang out these days. We'd probably kill each other.
Okay, like codependency, or it's the yin and yang. That's great.
Yeah, pretty much.
So bringing it back, so like obviously you just mentioned Daniel. So what was your take when you saw that Orange County had sold to Guitar Center and that buyout happened? How did you feel about that?
I Well, I'm a little bummed, but at the same time, I knew Daniel. Daniel, he wanted to go be a tech. You know, he wanted to go out with Travis, and Daniel's done exactly what Daniel wanted to do. You know, and he's doing it today. You know, for with Travis and John. You know, playing these humongous shows. Even if you're the tech, you're still playing the show. You know,
Hmm.
it's badass.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked for Daniel. You know, he's living his life, and you know he's gone through things in life, you know, and he's still kicking ass and enjoying himself and living, you know, a great life. Has a great family. Uh, you know, I was always a Peisty player, and you know, when I got back into music, uh, Tim from Peisty said, "Oh, you know, sorry, we during COVID we just dropped you off the Peisty roster."
Oh man.
I was like, "Well, okay, I'm not asking for anything for free. Can I get a discount
Hmm.
or a little something?" And he helped me once, and then the next time he said, "Oh, I got to see if Kelly still wants to help you." And I was like, "Okay, it's not really that hard to help me. I'm gonna give you my credit card number. You know,
Yeah.
don't make me go to Guitar Center. They don't have any of your cymbals there."
No, they never do. They never
Um,
have the sizes or the models.
and it was a bummer because he ghosted me, which I thought was chicken shit. And I hit up Kirsten, and Kirsten was like, "Hey, you're welcome over here. You know, thanks. You know, that's awesome. You know." She goes, "Yeah, she says, I just so you know, I always thought it was rad that you never sold your drums either. You know, I thought that's cool. So, what do you need? You know, she doesn't give me cymbals or sticks. I pay for them,
Hmm.
but I get a discount, and I appreciate that. You know, I know I'm not anybody who deserves anything free. You know, but a nice discount helps a little bit, and
Yeah.
she's been very helpful, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah. It's also sometimes it's worth, paying for, just for the relationship as well. You know what I mean? Knowing that who's touching, you know what I mean? It's Kirsten picking out your symbols and actually like handing them to you. You know what I mean? You're actually they care about you.
Yeah,
They're not just gonna you're gonna get the call, not just magically dropped off the artist roster. you know?
yeah, and she's been great. You know, she's super busy. You know, and she's still willing to help, but I kind of tell her this is what I'm looking for, and she goes, "Here, I'll send you a couple items. Send back the one you don't like." You know, cool. I got some 13 hats that it didn't really fit what I'm doing, and I told her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, then I'll send you these, and just send me those ones back." I'm like, "All right, cool, thanks."
Yeah, it's funny too. You said like Daniel was like, "Oh, you don't like the color? Don't worry, I'll sell it. Bring it back." Kirsten's like, "Oh, you don't like the symbol? Send it back. We'll get you something that you want." It's
Same
yeah.
mentality.
Have you ever been to her office? She actually has an Orange County kit set up. You know what I mean? I've seen it on her Instagram where you've had
Mhm.
everybody playing that kit, which is just kind of cool. One day it could be Tommy Lee.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's totally cool.
yeah. I haven't been there. I've asked her a few times if she can make time for me to come up so I can hear a bunch of stuff in person, but I'll work it out soon, hopefully,
Yeah,
because
right.
I want to buy a bunch of stuff. I
Ah,
just, you know, Guitar Center just has such limited supply of everything.
yeah. Sweetwater is like, no plug in there, I'm gonna have to hit up my rep over there now and be like, "Hey dude, I shouted you out. Where's my hookup?" But Sweetwater is one of those that, they're I think kind of filled that void where Guitar Center, we can carry all these brands, but the likelihood of them actually having what you want, you know, not to
Yeah,
shit on Guitar Center, but I feel like at one point it was like, as a kid, it's like, here's everything that you want and can't afford. Then it got to the point of here's everything I can afford that I don't want,
yeah,
you know? But
yeah.
yeah.
I wish we had forks around here. You guys ever been to Forks in Nashville?
Funny enough, I did a record down in Nashville with that band, Pop Evil. I think it was
Oh yeah,
yeah, I think it was their second record, and the studio name changed. I can't remember what it was before, but it was the Sound Emporium when I was down there. That's where like
Hmm.
REM recorded their big hit record. Taylor Swift did her first record there, and I think Robert Plant did his like first solo. But what was cool
Hmm.
is like studio was here. You went out the door, made a left, and you had some of the best barbecue. You'd make a right, and Forks was right there, which was super cool.
Okay, I
And
know.
this
Yeah.
is back when Forks Drum Shop was still owned by the family. Steve Maxwell didn't buy it yet. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So yeah, you'd walk in there and you would literally just look up and just go, wow. You know what I mean? Snares left and right. A little overwhelming too, especially as a drummer used to the little section in Guitar Center, just like, hey, here's a kit and a couple snares. Like you're like, oh no, like what color? You know what I mean?
One thing that was cool that happened there too is I met this guy who I thought was working there, and he was helping. Oh yeah, check this out and check this out, and his name is Tyler Bronson. We've become pretty good friends now, but he's a Nashville like session guy, plays with a bunch of bands, and um, he goes, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" I was only in town for the night. I said, "Oh, we're gonna go down on Broadway and check it out." He goes, "Oh, my band's playing at the stage," so we went down there and watched them play. Then later I go, "So how is it working at Forks?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't work there. We're just hanging out there. I was just showing you around." I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Yeah,
uh,
he's a cool cat, man. Good guy. Good shout out to Tyler.
no, that's funny. It's like, yeah, your tour manager gave me passes. Like, that's not a tour manager. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so we're kind of ending the near here before we nearing the end here before we jump onto our Patreon section and really dive into these the beautiful kits that have been sitting behind you this whole time. But I just wanted to leave you with
Okay.
one final question. Did you
Yeah.
realize that Orange County was going to be such a legacy in the drum world? Looking back now on what, almost 30 years later?
I did. I thought the company was going to be the biggest drum company in the business, especially with the drummers that endorsed it, and Chad and Adrian being behind it, and Daniel. I never got to know John. John was always, kind of more, seemed like he was in the office and stuff, He was always super cool, but I just didn't really get to know John. To me, it was my connection was Daniel and Jeremy and Mike. But I thought the company was going to blow up, and until Daniel one day mentioned to me, like, yeah, I kind of want to go out and be a tech and travel and tour, And so I was like, oh, okay, well, what's going to happen? He's like, I don't know. And then heard about the sale, and I knew all the old school custom drums would always be awesome, because if they were going to sell, what was going to happen next,
Yeah.
where they were going to be built, so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Sadly, it's one of those things, when companies sell, it's like, nothing's going to change until it changes.
Yeah.
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 Sadly.
Exactly.
Yeah. But man, BC dude, I'm sure we could sit here and tell stories for days, but I just love that you still have the drums, still play them, still love them, and obviously you're, super grateful that, Daniel hooked you up back in the day, and I think, I can't see you playing anything else, man. That's really your sound. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, for everybody out there, man, thanks again to BC for joining us today. He's going to stick around on our Patreon, and lastly, where can people find you?
Rotation Motorsports on Instagram. Pretty much that's the place to find me. And then follow Bias Band OC, which is breaking in a sequence, and then Solution Music on Instagram for both bands.
Right on, man. It's been fun. And again, thank you. And until next time, guys, thanks again.
Thank you.
That was BC Vaught, drummer, innovator, and one of the early believers in what Orange County drum and percussion would become. From Head PE to Breakin' Benjamin and beyond, his story ties together the sound, energy, and legacy of an era. If you want to hear more, head over to our Patreon where BC sticks around to talk about his original O.C.D.P kits, rare snares, and the stories behind them. This has been the Fully Vented Podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.